Good morning, Gardenia. Happy Monday. Welcome to Adam versus the Man. Got a pretty exciting show lined up for you today with new camera equipment, and you can tell just how funny my hair looks this morning. All right, welcome to the show. We've got Mental Health Monday. We've got co-host Joey Lee J. Mary Jane joining us in studio. We've got some excellent guests. We've got Normal speaking on Colorado HB 21-1317. Joey, are you afraid of HB 21-1317?
More afraid than I am of COVID.
Yes. Are they still pulling this shit? What is going on? I thought in Colorado, Normal was like disbanded into a social club / historical society. Like we would hope the Libertarian Party will be someday, because we've achieved our goals and there's no need for this organization to exist. No, that's not the case.
Not the case.
What are they trying to do in Colorado?
Yeah, I'm really not that up to date on what's going on, but they are trying to take a big hit on patient rights. I don't know if it's a THC cap, but some new regulation. Of course, they can't just let people smoke their weed in peace.
Even in Colorado.
Even in Colorado, the motherland of recreational weed.
All right. Well, today we look forward to hearing from Ashley Weber and Julie Richards. Also, Martin Cowen joins us towards the end of the show. He is running again for U.S. House of Representatives to represent Georgia's District 13. Someone I've gotten to meet and hung out with a couple times at LP state conventions in Georgia, and actually having him as a Georgia Normal activist following our Colorado Normal candidates today. Very, very appropriate. So appropriate. I like that word. I want to, like, I've had exes make fun of me because they'll, like, a girlfriend asked me, "Hey, how does this dress make me look?" That is so appropriate for tonight. Like, that looks good. Like, it's not appropriate. Does this dress make my butt look appropriate? No, it's been like this thing I've had with exes where I use the word appropriate, and I mean it is like in the nicest, like you look great for the evening. Like it's very appropriate. Like, to me, that's like, you look for the moment. You look right for the moment. Like, it's supposed to be like, right? Appropriate. Like and women, but women, oh, that's appropriate. Yeah, like what you were, but the common usage of the word appropriate in referring to attire is not inappropriate, not extremely appropriate, or so appropriate, or wonderfully appropriate, but that's or even tantalizingly appropriate. But I like, because you can use the word appropriate both ways, totally legitimately, and really with the same. It's Monday. I'm starting with definitions. Right? No, even with the same definition of appropriate, you can use appropriate. Yes, that is appropriate. That is righteous. That is in its place in the universe. In my world, that is appropriate. You look beautiful, darling. You know, right? And then it's like, oh, it's appropriate, because it's not inappropriate. I don't think because more often it's, is that really appropriate, young lady? I think my exes have been used to hearing that more than men going, "Yeah, baby, that is so appropriate."
I got this like Eric Clapton thing. "My darling, you look so appropriate tonight." I don't know if it would work.
I want to sing my own version, and I can't because I'm laughing too hard. What do I start the Monday show? We do have a lot of headlines. We got a big COVID block. We are going to get into, we got January 6th insurrection FBI files. We got Biden's attempt to crack down on domestic extremists, blah, 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 blah. Great guests, a lot of links. And with that, executive producer Jim Freedom. I think I'm putting my hair back.
Good morning. What's going on? Welcome to the show, everybody. Adam's doing his hair to make himself nice and pretty for you. While he does that, you can join us at t.me/Adam versus the Man. It's a Telegram channel, public, open, available to everybody. We post all kinds of notes that is going on with the show, and the links that every article we talk about on the show are in there. So definitely get yourself connected to the Telegram, t.me/Adam versus the Man. We also have a private Telegram. And we also have a Patreon, which is where you can buy access to said private Telegram. $1, $5, $10, and $50 a month of the different levels to support the show via Patreon. $10 a month is the sweet spot that'll get you access to the private producers club. It's an awesome time. We all love that producers club, and it keeps growing. So keep it growing. Keep supporting us through patreon.com/Adam versus the man. Next, we got the crypto6.com. Great website that'll educate you on everything that's going on with the Bitcoin church that was raided up in Keene, New Hampshire. People are still in cages. You can use this link on this website to write to them and keep them company. Let them know you're supporting them. Let them know you believe in their cause. You got QR codes here. You can donate different cryptocurrencies to their legal funds and situations to try to help them out that way. So that's definitely worth taking advantage of and looking at. Instagram at the Garden of Freedom is the handle. You can see all kinds of cool pictures and videos of life up there in Gardenia, everything that's going on, all the fur babies and beautiful sunsets and artistic shots of everyone. Instagram at the Garden of Freedom is a great website, great destination for visual pleasure of the eyes, videos and pictures. Lastly, gogreenenergyonline.com, best website on the internet for people that are looking to do it themselves and want to learn more about solar power, micro wind power, and zero energy homes. So if you have an interest in this and you want to get your home self-sustaining and off the official grid, gogreenenergyonline.com is the best do-it-yourself website for you. So definitely give that a check out. And enjoy the show, everybody.
All right, thank you, Jim. And for some reason now, StreamYard is freezing in this browser, but I'm back. I hope you guys like this front-facing camera now.
The details are incredible.
Is it? It's like, wait, no. Can I wipe? There's this spot in the middle. Oh, it's shit. All right. So we've been censored again lately, and gosh, I need preemptive COVID vitamins for this. By the way, look at my hair. My hair is so much more appropriate. Professional man bun. Professional. It's not bun yet. Top knot. It'll grow into a bun, and I didn't know this. That like as I was growing my hair out, I could do samurai top knot for a while. Like, holy shit, that's a thing. I might just keep it this length. I might like how like the samurais have like super neat at the end of the ponytail. I might cut my ponytail so that it's like nice edge right there on top when I put it up in the exact right position every single day, like a disciplined samurai. But it's more. This is more. It's weirdly like is when I do the ponytail in the back, it's too short to look neat. When I do the ponytail in the back, I get like wild hairs all over the place right now. I do the top ponytail, and it looks neater, but it also makes me look like a wannabe samurai, right? Like it's the wannabe samurai. No, strike a pose. Anyway. It offsets the beard, but because it's neat, this is more professional than just crazy random hair. Joey, why aren't you on screen yet?
Oh, I even put a hat on to hide my crazy hair. To take it off.
Joey, as CEO of Adam versus the Man, also has something to raise with censorship about getting censored again. And I just got to say, I would rather be telling the truth and censored than lying and not. It's something that comes up at times like these as a weird existential struggle, and I am never tempted to not tell the truth, but I have been tempted to tell different truths, right? And if you was it whose channel? Someone else. I'm quoting, probably misquoting. The truth is extreme. To make it moderate is to lie.
Yeah.
And I have been tempted to tell different truths, never to really escape the core truth of the nature of government and ethics and humanity. Truths, the truthiness of these subjects. I have never been tempted to lie, but I've been tempted a lot to change formats, and I've been tempted a lot to address different subjects, or more importantly, stay away from certain subjects. And there are a few that are really, really sensitive out there, and it's like right now, like historically, there have always been some. I mean, maybe one of the big ones was Holocaust revisionism, because they call it denialism. If you're denying Holocaust, that's because you hate the Jews, even if you is one or half of one. I guess I am. Well, no, my mom's Jewish. That makes me Jewish, right? Half Jewish, half German. But like I don't. And to not be an historical revisionist. Oh yes, when we wrote the history down the first time, we got it all correct. Are you fucking kidding me? That's a really weird conspiracy theory. Implausible and revise all sorts of things. So to look at modern history and how we've been lied to by government is pretty important to keep in mind. I mean, wait a second, Gulf of Tonkin was a false flag? That must be, well, yeah, that's pretty commonly mainstream accepted historical revisionism. And now it's in the present, and what we're experiencing now is a distinct period of heightened censorship.
Is it?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking back to the Dark Ages.
Historically speaking, no. Historically speaking, we live in a period of great freedom of speech. But I would point out, within the general trend of history. So Joey, thank you for reminding us of this longer timeline of progress. Two steps forward, one step backwards as we climb a mountain.
Yeah.
And we have taken a major step backwards around COVID. I would say even before that, the internet was like we sprinted up a section of the hill with the internet, right? But then government came onto the internet. And since then, we've been in a major step backwards. And this last step backwards is us stumbling on our ass. And we're only, a third of the way down, maybe. If you think of this, does this metaphor still hold water? Let's see. You're running up the hill. Humanity is I think humanity is on a steady march. Maybe it's exponential, right? But a steady march up a hill. And the top, I may not get there with you, but I have seen the promised land of freedom of speech. I have seen the promised land where we don't give in to corporate censors or government censors and individuals who want to control the conversation to censor their own inputs, which is legitimate censorship as opposed to illegitimate censorship. People will be empowered to censor for themselves, to control their information flow for themselves like never before. Mercedes Leap, I got shit down. I shut down so hard for telling the truth about COVID, and now I'm being validated. Yeah, no, it is a fun part of the Adam versus the Man story. A year ago, we got a strike on YouTube for questioning.
This all happened yesterday.
No, but this is from a year and a half. Well, let me go back to it, because we were vindicated a week later. I said something about distancing policies or mask policies and the spread of COVID, and the CDC came out. Well, I got a strike on YouTube for questioning the CDC, and then that was Thursday, and then Friday we got the strike, and then Saturday the CDC changed their position to be in line with mine. And you're like, and then and I don't get compensated for that. So YouTube doesn't give a fuck. YouTube is happy to be a tool of the establishment, and I generally give even the evil corporations the benefit of the doubt. The market has created these wonderful entities as companies that grow up of people coming together with the cutting edge technology and ideas and thoughts and dreams and plans to pool resources to create new goods and services that people want to consume, and they get a certain size, and then government takes over. That's corporatism. It's not the free market perverted. It's the free market taken over by government.
And it happened again. This time, this one killed me because they were, so one of the videos was from April of 2020, when you had Dr. Mary Ruwart on. And you just had her on, 2 weeks ago? Both of these videos got flagged for misinformation. Both of them we disputed. One of them was restored and the other was not. All in one fell swoop. Same note, like notification, approved, not approved. And same guest, same topic, same general understanding of COVID. You're just presenting facts. There was no crazy, radical, opinionated. And even if there were, it's in a crazy, radical, opinionated thing. So it's almost as if YouTube is telling people that not only can they not choose what they can say, they can't choose what they can think either. Seems
Jim
like
weighing in. What's really funny is that I stream this on my YouTube and I get no strikes.
yeah. How's
And this I wonder because like I have been doing this for so long and I've seen my own numbers and my own audience grow organically and then be suppressed and then destroyed and rebuild. And I've rebuilt from scratch half a dozen times. And then you see like new people coming up and it's like, wait a second, I used to get numbers like that. And you go, wait, you're the one. Okay, so you're the ones. The system is letting. I don't say the establishment. I don't know how conscientious this is. The system is letting grow because they don't let us grow, and I see this happen to others. There's sort of like with libertarian content creators. If you're true to libertarian principles and consistent and intellectually, you have an intellectual integrity as you try to look at the world through the libertarian message, then there's a limit to how big you can get before you start getting seriously fucked with. And I've been like, I think I hit that limit and I've been like cruising underneath it, and trying to break out for I don't know how many years. But yeah, that's shadow banning and it's very deliberate towards libertarians at this point. We can say that much.
And Goat Patrol chimes in, religion of the future is now corporation. I feel that people are worshiping the dollar and the corporate entity instead of deity.
Well, that should be today's comment contest, unless you have a really good weed one.
No,
we have kind of a weed thing.
I liked your appropriate story. Mine was going to be best way to tell your girl she looks appropriate. She looks appropriate.
Well, I think perhaps a better one is what do you worship?
Yeah.
What is your true religion?
I like that.
And I mean this not in what do you actually believe, but what do you actually worship? Like, what is your religion in practice? What is America's religion? Because libertarians will point this out, and a lot of libertarians, as we question the institution of government institutions, we also question the institutions of religion, and it's very interesting to watch. Like the spiritual evolution of libertarians, because I've gone through a pretty interesting one myself, and I've seen and heard enough to notice the patterns. And it starts with, well, I've questioned government. They were like Game of Thrones. Karen Ann would appreciate this reference. It's like King. What's the name of the king that commits suicide? But
Joffrey?
No, he gets
Joffrey's
murdered.
brother?
Yeah, the one
The little one that's
after that. Yeah. Yeah, the one, yeah. Spoiler alert. The one who walks off the edge of the castle.
I forget his name.
He had some fun. Anyway, the two pillars that hold up the world are the crown and the cross, or it was government and religion. I forget it, but he made a dramatic speech from the steps of the church in the town, in the city of Westeros. No, what's the name? Man, I'm like, it's been too long. I'm fucking up on my Game of Thrones.
I still haven't seen the last.
But it's it's the speech where he says the two pillars that hold up the world. He says the world are government and religion, and he's talking about the cross and the crown.
Before there was government, religion was government,
and they do work hand in hand. But you might say that now, government-run, banking-run corporations what do they hold up the world? No, they maintain the perversion of society is what they do, right? Because excuse me, at least in the time when they said it was government and religion, or cross and crown, that held up the world, excuse me, religion was not a means of serving people, of giving them access to religious services or connection with God or spiritual enlightenment or like the good things that come out of religion, right? It was to bully them into control through fear and social manipulation to be obedient, not just to the church, but to the crown. And they worked hand in hand that way. And the crown was not some benign service of social organization like people pretend that government is today. People didn't even pretend that it was back then. It was, well, they did pretend. They started to pretend because it made it easier to pacify their victims, because that's what they were. They were the conquered, the vanquished. And how did you become a king? By murdering effectively. Right? Are you good at murder? Good, you get to be king. That's it. Or you're born into it, and then you're good at maintaining the racket based on murder. You probably still have to be pretty good at murdering to stay king, right? At least back in the day, as I remember it. So now have those pillars expanded to include corporatism, the dollar, modern money, perhaps? D. Vincent W. You cannot legislate religion requires forcing people to comply leads to genocide. Another Inquisition. Yeah. Speaking of Inquisition, the Libertarian Party Inquisition is ongoing over the weekend.
Wait, back to the comment contest before we move on.
What do you worship? What does America worship? Because you would say, because it's like I believe that the average American Christian believes in Christianity. But they're really shitty Christians when you go, well, what is that? Do you live up to that belief? Because if you look at who you worship, who do you actually tithe to? Who do you actually put time in with? Who do you give your attention to? And you go, well, no, you worship the tax man, or you worship government, you tithe to the tax man, and you worship football and corporations and consumerism, like and the television. You say well, it's not the television. Yeah, in a sense, it's the television.
It's sports.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
many things. Jacob Vanderplas says America worships conflict.
Ooh.
Jacob, I like that gives me the icks, but you're not that far off from what we see. I mean, but America, the people, or America, the government? Like, America, the government definitely worships conflict. I don't think the people.
The government doesn't worship. The government is a tool. It is not a conscientious entity. But when you say worships conflict, no, it's the people. It's the bread and circuses. Because remember, bread and circuses. Back in Roman times, what were circuses?
The Colosseums, the gladiator fights, where people were getting mauled by animals. Yes. That's fun. Let's go watch somebody get mauled by animals this weekend. Let's get the kids.
Now, I wonder if historians would criticize movies like Gladiator that portray a glorified vision of what happens in the arena. It's tough, strong men with good weapons and protective armor and impressive looking shields and lions that are ready to, and they have bloody battles with chariots, and then at the end the crowd cheers and the emperor gives and you have this like it's almost a comical a caricaturized version of what I suspect the reality was, being a lot uglier and nittier and grittier, and it's slaves who went out to get eaten by the lions and fight the lions.
It was a mixture of slaves and like voluntary warriors. I took a lot of Greek and Roman history in high school. It's been a while, but I mean, extensive. All 4 years, I was diving into Greek and Roman history.
Were people getting drunk in the stands?
Yeah, of course. People were getting drunk everywhere. They woke up and they drank. The water wasn't great. The alcohol wouldn't kill you. The water might kill you.
Yeah, right.
That's where the.
But it was a weird orgy of violence, and it was a lot grosser than this iconic vision.
Gladiators, like whatever. It's the same thing today. Why do you want to be a football player? Are you going to go get hit in the head forever and screwed? I mean, hold on. That's a bad. I was
gonna say, people don't die playing football, and then you go, well, are you killed by football if you die of a concussion-based disorder at age 40 because you played football from 14 to 30? Like,
okay, so put it in terms of the modern day.
Your family will be taken care of after your death.
Put it in terms of the modern day soldier. I think that's what the gladiator was.
Yeah.
And if there wasn't more going on, they had to stay fit, right? I think a lot of people wanted to be in that position. It's disgusting. It sounds.
Well, I appreciate the comment of worshiping conflict, because conflict It's like if it bleeds, it leads. And there is something that might actually strike to the core of the perversion of society. Like I'm reminded of the John Lennon quote again. I need to have sex in public more often. That's not the quote. The quote is, why is it that we are comfortable, or why is it that society endorses killing people in public and bragging about war, and yet we have to make love in secret, right? 1054 reduced to single world. America worships theater. Well, it doesn't have to be reduced to a single word, but yeah, theater sort of is with this. But theater can be conflict or not, right? I mean, yes, inherently in any good story, there's a story arc, there's conflict, but a story, a theater can be anti-war, anti-conflict, can promote love and connectedness. I mean, I guess that's why I boycott Hollywood, because most of their movies don't do that, right? That's one reason. Wait, what did you want to read that comment from Moose Girl?
Yeah, Moose Girl, it's two-part on YouTube. Says America worships racism and violence and sexism. She goes on to say to keep us divided. So I feel like that America Moose Girl is talking about is the American people that are covered.
Sure, yeah. And part of this is like, what do you worship too? Like in a healthy way. Like I want to think like, but I want to address that comment first. So, like, does America worship racism? No, we have a weird, complex relationship with racism, but we're past worshiping it. You want to make the case? I'm open to hearing it. But it's like the same thing with sexism. We don't worship it. It's like a weird thing that's there. Like, what do we give our time and money and attention to? And conflict is an analysis that says, like, yes, why do we give money to government to protect from conflict? Why do we watch sports? Why do we pay for pay-per-view? It's a worship of conflict. It's not a worship of racism or sexism. What was her third one? Corporatism or
racism, sexism, and violence.
Yeah, so you say worship violence, like there's an attention paid to and a celebration of violence. That could be said to be worship. And I disagree. I don't think violence is one of the big ones.
No.
But I'm open to being convinced. I like your analysis, but racism and sexism, I see them, are not worship.
To watch big men run into each other real hard and be violent in boxing. So I would say,
violence.
We still do,
but that's not racism and sexism.
No, violence.
But let's think about this. Let me devil's advocate myself here. Like, can I say that we worship racism? That like when racism comes up, we look at it and go, "Yay, race!" No, there's none of that. Sexism. I mean, well, no, because you say covertly, because like our sports racist, is politics racist? Yeah, subtly are we? But that's not really. You can say Trump supporters. Some of them are maybe covertly worshiping racism that they projected onto Trump because of the xenophobia. But that's as far as I can figure out going with that. Sexism. Now, sexism in a deeper way could be more pervasive. Do we worship sexism? Maybe if you see sexism in a healthy way, right? Like we worship men being strong men, we worship women being strong women, to the extent that it's just we're worshiping discriminatory or toxic masculinity or toxic femininity. You could say it's worshiping sexism, but it's I'm already at like, yeah. All right, Vicky.
Vicky circles. I mean, that's kind of brings all of Moose Girl's comments together. It's if America does worship violence, sexism, and racism, then it's because they're worshiping the establishment. Okay, but it's so yeah. No, I would only change the wording with Vicky slightly to make it slightly more on point, Vicky. But that's a great insight because it's authority. Right? America has a problem worshiping authority and not being able to separate legitimate authority from false authority. And understand that no authority deserves to really be worshipped, right? I think of like legitimate authority. Like I would hope that Adam Kokesh has some legitimate authority in the delivering the news every day, enough to get you. But all my authority is you should listen to me for 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, and be informed and have a good time with it, right? That's like a legitimate authority. But if I say, if you don't listen to me, you're a bad person, and my listeners should force you to be a part of our audience, and then you worship that because I'm being authoritative or authoritarian, toxic authority. Who else does that? Oh yeah, government. That's a problem, and I think about the psychological studies
from that I studied in undergrad, and one of them is the Milgram obedience studies. If you don't know it, look it up. And it's like if you get a guy wearing a white lab coat,
Yeah.
people are more likely to be obedient and zap participants. Like it takes too long to explain the whole thing right now, but it shows that people are willing to be more obedient when authority represents itself in a lab coat, and that's all it takes. Jim Fried, America worships itself. Yeah, there's an ego. It's Jim. That's a great insight. I would go further and say America worships the false ideal of America.
The greatest country in the world. What was the opening scene, the speech from House of Cards? That was it. Great speech. Starts off, oh, America's the greatest country in the world. I will tell you why it's not. And this professor, we have the highest prison population, the highest poverty rates in a first world country. And just he goes down the list, and these students are just, you see them like accepting the reality.
Rejecting it. Yeah, right. As they say, its own self-righteousness. Sure, yeah, that's a part of that false ideal. All right, before we jump into our COVID block, before Joey goes, two upfront stories here today from the Associated Press. Jesus Christ, now that we're 30 minutes into the show already.
Yeah, that was a good
good opening ramble.
Very good discussion.
Pandemic delayed surgeries share blame for blood shortage. Some New England hospitals are delaying or rescheduling surgeries because of a shortage of blood donations during the pandemic. And this is my pet cause, blood donations, and I am behind in it for myself, just because we haven't had the chance traveling. And it's like even someone like so I live remotely. It hasn't been that long. No. I gave blood last December, so 6 months ago in California, and I wore a mask at a Vitalant Center in Ventura, California, to do that. But I tried to. They didn't want my double power red, which is what their fancy term for people who can give a double dose of red blood cells, and it's a fun thing. They have a needle coming out of your arm with 3 hoses, and one pulls whole blood, and then it goes through a centrifuge, and the other 2 inject back in your plasma with saline or something. You can feel the cold like creeping into your heart and through your veins. It's really neat. But they were like, no, we need whole blood. And this is actually a big deal. This is serious. Like Adam's called the community service because COVID has made it a pain in the ass even for someone like me. Like, and the thing is, I live remotely. I don't have a local clinic. The closest place I can go to give blood is at least an hour away. And the places I prefer to give blood are 2+ hours away in Phoenix or 3+ hours away in Las Vegas. And they have been limited because they've been short-staffed, short on volunteers because of COVID. And whether you like it or not, a lot of the people who do mostly good things with their lives in the American society are still vulnerable to fear from government, as we have been at different times in our lives, and even throughout COVID as well. We'll cover all the fear-mongering crises today with headlines. But I would encourage you, especially now, if you can get out and give blood, please do it. This is one of those things where it's like, help the stupid people to wear a mask if you have to. Although I wonder if Arizona, like now this really makes me really curious. Like I kind of want to go try to give blood at one of the places that I haven't yet in Prescott and see if they're. See, Prescott is like the places are an hour away are Prescott and Flagstaff, and I think last time I checked, it might have been years ago, they only have periodic blood drives. They desperately need blood and blood platelets. Yes, Moose Girl 08 on YouTube. Thank you for weighing in, supporting me on this. This is a getting at this to the point of crisis. So if you can donate blood, if you can donate whatever body tissue you're qualified for. One of the things that's always motivated me is when I gave blood in college, they told me I had special blood for babies. Yeah, that like most humans have a virus.
Stuff Hillary drinks.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, blood for babies, not from babies, for babies. Okay. Yeah, so no, that most humans have a virus of some kind in their body that like 5% of us don't have, and we're the only ones who can donate blood for babies when babies need blood transfusions.
I'm a babysitter.
So I'm a babysitter. Thanks, Joey. Never thought of it in those terms. All right. Well, so Vitalent.org. It's Vital Ant. Vital Ant. Go to the Vital Ant website, vitalant.org. Vitalent blood donation services. If they can't hook you up, there are others. I'm not a brand whore, but I've had nothing but good experiences with Vitalent. So check it out. Forbes.com. I want to say happy Juneteenth. Delayed 2 days to those because I didn't get to say anything. Pretty busy day Saturday, unfortunately. And like Juneteenth, if you don't like Juneteenth, you're pro-slavery because Juneteenth is a celebration. And it's like, not exactly. And as much as I'm like, yeah, Juneteenth, end of slavery in America, fucking awesome, great, yeah, like yeah, like I'm more critical to human advancement than anything in American history, probably, right? And Juneteenth is for June 19th, when slaves in Texas were notified of their liberation. And with a stroke of his pen Thursday, Joe Biden signed legislation giving millions of federal employees Friday off to celebrate Saturday's new federal holiday, June. What? Really?
That's how that works.
Really? Yeah. No. You know, the headline is 44 paid days off each year. This makes 40, and it's like, wait, the holiday's on Saturday?
Wait, how do they get?
So you get Friday off
and 43 other days?
Yeah, no,
okay.
44 paid days off. Yeah, annually.
Like they're giving
And for the end of slavery, we're also celebrating the end of regular employment. No. 44 days off annually for the average federal employee.
It happens
9 full weeks of paid time off each year.
Where does that happen in the private sector? Does your job give you 9 weeks paid vacation?
I want a government job.
You can work, right? Like you've got to work like 2 years to get your first week's worth of vacation, right? Then you have to work another year to get 2, and it caps at like 4. And it's like a use it or lose it thing. And like they're so stingy around their vacation time. Any private sector job.
Is 4 weeks the norm?
9 weeks. I don't think 4 weeks is the norm at all, unless you've been with a company
for
average, 5 years.
Jim, it depends on the executive level and the private. Executives totally no. And I understand for executives, like if a company says, hey, we want you to come in and retool our sales, and you're only going to work 1 week a month because that's like you're that valuable at this executive level, maybe that's something else. But like as a line worker, you know, what is the average paid time off per year?
How many in the comments? What's your boss give you time off? What's your allowance per year? And how long did you have to work to earn it? Because I don't know. Hey, good news.
Is your
live on Twitch
5G mind control interface the same password?
It is indeed.
All right, let's see if I can get on there. But yeah, what does Google say if you just ask what is the average paid time of paid time off of Americans? 10 days off is the average number of paid time off for private sector employees who've completed 1 year of service, according to BLS. It's actually 9.7 days. They rounded up, of course.
Week 2, week 4. That's so.
Does not include sick days or paid holidays. What are paid holidays? How many paid holidays? But paid days off? But yeah, retail, they just ignore federal holiday, like everything in retail and manufacturing, right? Maybe not some manufacturing.
It's
What's the average? 10 days is the average paid time off for those who have done a year at their job already. Yeah, a lot of variety, of course, and that's good that it's not like super standardized, but it should be competitive.
Ed says add 6 weeks for pregnancy. Oh no, you don't. Is it 6 weeks? That's not enough.
That's with government jobs.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they don't.
But see, so this thing about pregnancy, if I may, quick sidebar rant, with pregnancy and employment, an employer should be able to discriminate against employees if one of them says, hey, by the way, I'm planning on taking 6 months off next year to do this thing with my body.
Sure.
But you have a right to do that. But
doesn't mean they have to hold your job. We shouldn't be forced to do that.
The expectation of the employer to create that special accommodation without prior agreement, or it's like you have a large workforce, there should be a contractual contingency plan for if you get pregnant, based on the work, right? Like if you're a crab boat fisherman, you should be allowed to be a crab boat fisherwoman. But if you get pregnant and you chose to get pregnant, sorry, you're fucking fired. Get the fuck off my boat. Like you came out here with the commitment to work on this boat.
You can't do it with a baby.
Pregnancy is not compatible with this. And I will not accept the liability as a crab fisher boat captain. As a crab fisher boat captain.
The government would jump all over that. Don't discriminate.
So exactly. So within the corporate world and the ability of government to insert itself with these standards, they haven't been able to create like a realistic policy and says, well, hey, go get that government job because they'll take care of you. Government has the nicest standards, the best paid time off, the most vacation days, and the best pregnancy leave. And with all that, okay, so we have 2 great guests. We're gonna have to do like a compressed mental health block in between them. But yeah, time to jump in.
Before we do,
to the
we're
COVID
live
block.
on Twitch.
We're live on Twitch.
We are live on Twitch.
Hello, Twitch.
Time. Say hi to Twitch.
Do the gamers like this show?
Not yet.
Not yet.
One of them does.
One of them does. Hi! One guy on Twitch watching Adam versus the Man on our experimental branch out to escape the censorship of Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
We've had a lot of recommendations for Twitch in the comments over the week. So we did it, guys. It's there for you.
Live.
Go see it. Go share it, subscribe, like, do the Twitch things. That's it.
Twitch. Well, I don't want to like bullshit the gamer community and say, oh, I'm a gamer, or pretend to be like, oh, because I play 2 dots on my cell phone. Oh yeah. It'd be funny if I said Candy Crush. I play Candy Crush, so I'm a gamer. Like, no. And I'm not. I don't pretend to say like that's not one of my indulgences. Like to me, I have enough real life games. I have enough stuff to play with around here in Gardenia. Check out our Instagram at the Garden of Freedom. But no, like I'm not a gamer. But I would think that I do share one perhaps deeper sort of rational skepticism with what I think is the core intellectual foundation of what I have noticed from my friends who are gamers in the gamer community, which is skepticism, questioning things, and that this is like that same perspective with which a lot of you look at a new gaming world or a new gaming challenge or a puzzle, or a Rubik's Cube someone tossed in your lap just to fuck with you, then that's how I look at government. That's how I look at the world. That's how I look at statism. I mean, to me, it's one big video game. We're all living in a simulation anyway, right?
Don't be an NPC.
Don't be an NPC. That's the core of our message, really, at Adam versus the Man. Don't be an NPC. Ross Small, can we find out why?
Facebook. He wants to know why the FBI took Ed's smartphone. And for everybody who didn't get that announcement, that is up part 2 on Patreon.
Yeah, so you can join Patreon. I got to get through this, dear. We got to get to some COVID stories before our guests. But we don't know why. We know why they said, and it was because Ed was at the Capitol on January 6th. He doesn't deny having been there. What he has said is that he has no involvement with any of the actual criminal activity, nothing to hide. He said, yeah, take my cell phone. And if by the way, if the FBI knocks at your door with a warrant for your cell phone, you should resist verbally and legally to the greatest extent you're willing, but physically, no.
They had the
Because
right to hold him down.
That's the army saying, we're coming for your fucking cell phone. Give it up peacefully, please, so we don't. And you should.
Which
So that's
isn't
it's the right. It's
but that's what it really is.
Yeah, that's what it is. Anyway, that's what they said. Why I said, and they said they were going to investigate and pull data off it, and then bring it back. I'm still waiting for a call from them. I'm not really holding my breath. That the FBI is going to be nice and honest in this instance for once, but we'll see. They might.
I wouldn't want to take it back, man. I'd be afraid that bugged it or put
Come on.
Come on. I will.
It's already bugged. Come on.
I know, but it's got dirty.
It's got a new cell phone, so this will be his backup cell phone.
Yeah, we're good.
No, we should put it in a case, like an isolation chamber. Like
Faraday
put it in
cage.
put it in like a glass box on a pedestal. Here lies Ed's cell phone, still with FBI fingerprints on it. I don't know. It makes me
get FBI fingerprints off of it.
It makes me wonder. Yeah, we get FBI. That's a good point. We could print the agents. They'll wipe it for that. We'll wipe it for prints for themselves. Wash, but like before they hand it back, it'll be in a bag or something. It's like sterilized
For COVID.
evidence to be returned into the wild, or whatever they want to describe it as. But it seemed like, I mean, it seemed like they were asking me dumb questions about the Capitol as the excuse to come out here and talk to Ed and get his cell phone. And that might have in itself been an excuse to come out here to make it look like they care about Ed and not me or bigger goings on here. The Gardenia Overreach Museum. Good. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. All right, with that, COVID vitamins and misleading medical advice. This is pure parody, not real misleading medical advice. Please don't give us another strike, YouTube. Are we actually on YouTube? Oh yeah, because we had one. So
we're on YouTube.
We had a strike, and then a warning that appeal went through. So now I feel like an idiot for not knowing this, but apparently with YouTube, it's like you get a warning, and then a strike, and then 2 strikes, and then 3 strikes, and your account is killed. And they pile up, and then they expire. But I thought it was like warnings were a different category, like a misdemeanor, and strikes were like felonies. And it turns out I was wrong. According to Joey now, it's a warning is like step 1. A second, the offenses, they don't categorize offenses. You pissed off the gods of YouTube. That's why we play that little video thing before a COVID block and make sure that everybody knows that everything I say about anything that might get me censored is parody. We'll just put it like that. Yeah. If you think I said something that triggered the censors,
it was just a parody.
It was just a parody. This is joking. Just joking. All right, thesun.com. Oh, ship. That's the actual headline. Oh, ship. Celebrity Millennium 2 passengers on first fully vaccinated cruise in North America test positive for COVID. Wait. Are you telling me the vaccines don't work? Told you so.
Parody,
I told you so. Bloomberg at MSN.com. First U.S. cruise in 15 months to set sail as restrictions ease. Yeah, okay. Guests lined up to board Royal Caribbean Cruises Limited's Freedom of the Seas on Sunday, marking the first cruise from a U.S. port since the pandemic suspended operations 15 months ago. Interesting follow-up there. Yeah. Next from the Hill, CDC to hold emergency meeting on heart inflammation after COVID vaccines. Yeah, one more thing to be afraid. Like it's like they want you to be afraid of stuff, but I want, like, there are a couple ways you can go with this, and I think it's presumptive for someone like me to determine where this goes. It could be, oh yes, the CDC is doing its great job of due diligence and above and beyond trying to find anomalies with vaccine side effects. or it could be they're trying to make it look that way while covering serious shit up. We don't know yet. The Wall Street Journal: COVID-19 deaths this year have already eclipsed 2020's total. Yeah, this is really interesting. Just barely. And this is the subtitle is "Wealthy Nations Vaccinate, Growing Death Tally Underscores Worsening Divide Between Rich and Poor Countries." But again, the death so what this seems like to me is like we've got sort of a course of how many people they can say died in the United States before we go, well, do you know anybody who died? Do you know anybody who died? Do you know anybody who died? No. Well, you know, and start questioning the numbers and going like, wait, flu's not a thing. Nobody died from flu this year. So they're doing this thing now. The rest of it's sort of emanating out from first world countries overcounting COVID to now like all these third world countries, overcounting their COVID death counts. They go, oh my God, and they can keep citizens of the empire scared with graphs like that one, big pink scary graph from the Wall Street Journal. More COVID, and you go, wait, is this America? Well, we see so much that's Americentric. No, this is globally. You understand it. It's the exportation of the statistics racket, just like we have exported the war racket and so many other things from the United States. Statnews.com: as more kids go down the deep, dark tunnel of long COVID, doctors still can't predict who is at risk. Now, I don't know that there aren't real long-haul COVID symptoms. I haven't looked into it decisively enough to do that. But I would bet money that when you look at the overall health experience of kids, teenagers in the United States, that long-haul COVID symptoms have replaced other psychosomatic issues that teenagers tend to face. And this is just one more thing they want you to be afraid of. And they use the example. The first paragraph really triggers me to think this way, because they're trying to say that they're almost like preemptively trying to disprove my theory, which is like, you doth protest too much. At 14 years old, Kate Dardis knows what pain feels like and how to work through it. An accomplished gymnast accustomed to training 4 hours a day, she has met a competitor this year that she can't beat with exercise or sheer willpower yet. And of course, they're talking about COVID. She can't beat COVID with, and it's like, because kids who are great athletes never have crazy psychosomatic things when they have weird abusive experiences. Come on.
Everything's COVID.
Blame COVID. So I don't know. It's sort of like chemtrails. I know it's happening. To what extent government is responsible, I don't know. But the fact that they're hiding leads me to believe it's got to at least be significant, or they wouldn't be hiding it. And I don't know if how much of a deliberate attempt is it to hide it, but I've yet to hear anyone in the medical establishment or mainstream media allow the narrative to get out of a proper scientific assessment of how much psychosomatic effects are relevant in our COVID experience. Julian Griffel, long haulers equals hypochondriacs with a medical god complex. Yeah, I'm trying to be a little nicer about it than that. But yeah, okay. Now, here's what you really need to be afraid of from CNN Health. Former White House advisor says dangerous coronavirus variant is like COVID on steroids. On steroids. So you mean COVID will have greater muscle tone and smaller testicles? Is that what you meant? Oh, jeez. Cron.com with a story from the Washington Post. Rates of anxiety and depression among college students continue to soar, researchers say. Just one more thing in the cure being worse than the disease I told you so part. Reuters: how primates are aiding the fight against COVID-19 in Louisiana.
Louisiana.
See, I say it like Jerry Reed.
Louisiana. Say it.
Now the folks around South Louisiana said Amos was a hell of a man. He could trap the biggest alligator and just use one hand. That's all he got left because the alligator bit it. Okay, I'll stop. Yeah, Louisiana. No, but yeah, in Louisiana, they are
stuck in my head.
How it's gone. Hey, if you have this should be like the ultimate service with Adam versus the Man. If you have a bad song stuck in your head, I will pretend to sing it, and we'll take care of that problem. Yeah. So yeah, what are we doing? Of all the things we could be putting like medical research towards, we're experimenting with monkeys and COVID. Also from Reuters, China disease expert says COVID-19 origins probe should shift to U.S. according to Global Times. Yeah, you did it. You did it. Yes, really. The American Chinese finger pointing is pretty funny right now. LA Times at yahoo.com. Some vaccine experts have second thoughts about rushing to inoculate kids. Oh, finally acknowledging that. Now about the vaccine, how and being ineffective. I really could have put this on with the earlier stories about the vaccines. Livemint.com. UK virus search it. US excuse me. All right. I need more COVID vitamins. UK virus cases surge even as 8 in 10 have received shots. Just for perspective, here in the United States, only about half have received vaccines because we're not such bootlicking obedient suckers as they are in the UK. Our great forefathers left those obedient redcoats behind to create a free world where only half of the population are unthinking, obedient bootlickers, as opposed to 80% taking a vaccine that is next to useless in the bigger picture. Rollcall.com. Senators running out of patience on mask mandates for travelers. Buttigieg, remember Buttigieg, gay mayor, former mayor of some town in Indianapolis, pretty successful Democrat presidential nominee contender running against Biden. His consolation prize was to be Secretary of the Department of Transportation, and so that's why he's the one advocating for this. And it's make me important. That's not my gay voice. That's my Buttigieg bureaucrat voice.
I need a title.
Buttigieg cites justifications for keeping restrictions on air travel. Yeah. Because if I can't use this as an excuse, I'm not important anymore. Bloomberg quints COVID counts hit 0 in U.S. hospitals once overrun by victims. Yeah, they ran out of psychosomatic hypochondriac patients. The Sun, heavier bleeding. And I told you we'd be coming back to this story. And here's the best I got for now, where we're at with this, unfortunately. Heavier bleeding. Vaccine watchdog closely monitoring 4,000 women reporting period problems after getting their jab.
This is supposed to be a problem with the shedding too.
This is from the shedding. Yeah, right. It's not. It might. And so, yeah. Thank you for reminding me, Joey.
This headline, except for I didn't get the jab.
The rumor that we're following here is that that is the sort of worst case possible scenario, is that women who haven't gotten the vaccine have to be careful about being around women in particular, or anyone who's gotten the vaccine, because the viral shedding of the proteins. This is hypothetical, and a lot of people will dismiss this as just absolute crazy conspiracy theory shit, and it might be at this point. I don't know. I'm just asking questions. No, but there's enough. There's growing evidence. There's mainstream acknowledgement of blood clotting issues, and the worst case scenario is that the viral shedding, or the protein shedding, is significant enough that women who have wanted to protect their reproductive systems from the vaccines, from potential toxins, from whatever else, and from COVID, and they'd rather isolate. Now they can't be around people who have gotten the vaccine because they may be a threat, causing clotting issues and period type issues. Women problems, guys. Just let's leave
Lady
it
problems.
Lady stuff. Lady problems. Yeah, lady problems. So, I mean, and then if that's the case, the worst side of this is that women who have gotten the vaccine, no shit, are going to have it worse. And so now the vaccine watchdog is closely monitoring 4,000 women who have reported period problems after getting their COVID jab. A change in the menstrual cycle is not included on the list of potential side effects, but thousands of reports have been made, particularly among those aged 30 to 49. And yeah, this reflects a bigger problem, especially in the corrupt elements of the medical industry. where, as some people say, in especially in medical research and development of new drugs, women are treated as men with hormones, and as opposed to a different biological entity that deserves completely different study and consideration. And so, I mean, when you're worried about pushing a product that people don't need on them, like with the vaccine or so many other pharmaceutical bullshit drugs, well, why give women their fair shake? Oh no, we tested it. We didn't tell you we tested this one only on men. Oh well, silly woman. You're just a man with hormones. You're supposed to take these pills too. All right, I know our guests are waiting. We're an hour in. We're going to wrap up our COVID blog very quickly. Or studyfinds.org. Half of Americans fear they'll never recover from COVID pandemic stress. An emerging trend from AFP at yahoo.com. Downtown Chicago emerges from pandemic hobbled by crime wave. Unsurprising. But to end our COVID block with some light at the end of the tunnel, Bills, as in Buffalo Bills. This is from CBSSports.com. Bills Cole Beasley says he may retire over the NFL's new COVID restrictions for unvaccinated players.
He may.
To start, let's reach out to him with some love and support.
Absolutely.
For everybody who is taking risks in their Babylonian roles as citizens of the empire to step away from this particularly destructive, dangerous racket. I hope you enjoyed our misleading medical advice today. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us today are two representatives of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws Colorado chapter to discuss an impending piece of legislation there, HB 21-1317. Is it scary if I say HB 21-1317? First, Ashley Weber is president of Colorado NORML, a medical cannabis patient, a mother, longtime activist, caregiver, advisor, friend to anyone seeking information through all things whole plant and hemp CBD. Now, I think most cannabis activists would say check to most of those, right? I would hope. A lot of mothers, at this point, being motivated
Mama bears
to be. Well, it's not. It started with the mothers of the seizure kids in Texas going, you're going to make CBD illegal here and my kid's going to suffer like this as a result. Fuck you. But even with the compassionate nature of the divine motherly energy of like what people like, what do we need with cannabis as a movement aside from the final, justice and decriminalization and de-escalation of the drug war and reparations for stoners and all that. No, but what we need is a loving motherly energy to get aggro dudes who are anti-pot to go, okay, I'll try it. I mean, I know that's a really gross simplification of a beautiful, deeper, complex, very complex, social psychological dynamic, but I think a beautiful, important one that Ashley Weber is a great example of right now. Owner of the Gila Hemp for full spectrum CBD products, started her own business, utilizing her ability to help others. Also joining us, Julie Richardson, her VP of Colorado NORML. And I know that Julie also has some impressive credentials. Julie, if Ashley, either of y'all, thank you for joining us this morning. If there's anything you'd like to add to your credentials before we get into this new legislation, please, the floor is yours.
Well, Ashley, of course, she's the director, and I've been an advocate my entire life. In fact, it's been my career, advocating for education, housing, veterans' rights, hospice rights, tribal recognitions, Katrina, Rita, Gustav, and Ike, and I'm often getting called back home, but I've got a bigger hurricane going on here in Colorado. And now I serve as the marketing director, and I'm pretty active in all the different advocacy groups that are here as far as the patient groups go. And in 2014, I was diagnosed with cancer, and I felt like I had been reassigned. It was time for a different kind of fight. And so I loaded a U-Haul van and came out here.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. Ashley, anything we need to know on background or anything you want to say about the context of where we are with the drug war? I mean, it's a pretty exciting time, but we still got to fight legislation. What's going on?
Well, I never really thought I was going to be involved politically with cannabis and in regards to cannabis, but I was injured when I was 18 due to a rollover car accident, and I broke my neck, and it's put me as a quadriplegic, and I have found that cannabis has saved so much of my life and stress that I would have been taken on with a lot of the pills and extra pharmaceuticals that I would be on, that I advocate for cannabis in regards to that. I never would have probably entered into the political field had I not been served by the housing authority for using my medical marijuana at my house, which was Section 8, so it's a federal housing unit. I was sent a letter, actually 10 days to the day of my accident, and it was a knock on my door, and it was an eviction notice to get out, and it was due to medical cannabis on federal grounds. So it took me a day to kind of wrap my head around what I was dealing with, but after thinking about it, I had a 2-year-old son at that time, and I knew that it wasn't right, and many other people who were on veterans who were on disability, but also who also received Section 8 housing, were in the same position that I was in. So I wasn't the only one facing this. However, it just happened to show up at my doorstep. So I decided to take this challenge on because it wasn't right. So we wanted to right a wrong. With 12 years it being medically legal here in Colorado, we decided to take this to court, and after a year and 4 months we actually came out on top, and set court precedents for a lot of people in that position. So that's how I became politically involved in 2012, and now 10 years later, for 10 years I've been the executive director of Colorado NORML now, and so I've seen the many different pieces of legislation that's gone through our state. That 1220, it affected the caregivers' rights, and now we are seeing 1317, and the way you said it with HB 12, 1317, that's the way to say it. That's the way it was dropped. It was, we were actually talking with the legislators, and we were promised this language would not be heard this year, and this is something that we would bring back to the table next year. And that next week it dropped on a Friday without language online, so nobody knew what they were even looking at or what they were up against. So after we got a copy of the leaked language, we had one meeting with the Speaker of the House and some other representatives who were on this bill, and then it was heard already on a Tuesday, and then it was heard again on a Thursday. It passed both those committees. We had a meeting with the bill drafters again on a Friday, and it went to appropriations on Monday, where you can't testify, and they limited testimony for all the opposition, and to 2 minutes the first testimony, and then 30 minutes with a 3-minute testimony per person. So it just seemed like it was really pushed through the legislative body very, very fast. It was dropped quickly, and we have not heard hide or hair of the bill since we've asked for a veto from the governor. I know after a bill legislatively passes and they gavel out and session is over, the governor has 10 days to veto a bill. If it was pushed through in session, After the last 10 days of session, he has 30 days to veto a bill. So we're still waiting to hear back from the governor's office and his team on how he feels about 1317.
Why do people have this illusion that Colorado is all free and there's no more fight left there?
I believe it was because we were the first to legalize, and once people hear legalization, they feel that there's nothing more to accomplish. We've hit our goal. But when you're regulating, they forget that the House of I call the Colorado state capitol a fire hydrant. It's a golden dome, and each legislator has to come and mark their territory. So everybody's going to come and mark their territory, and we're facing, like you said, the pandemic just brought up a lot of issues that not a lot of parents maybe were aware of. And with the kids being home from school and the parents being home from their job, they now saw their kids smoking high potency marijuana, and it led to their mental illness, jumping off an RTD station and killing themselves. And we are very heartfelt, and we're very sympathetic to those mothers who had to go through that with their children. But here in Colorado, and I know many of the other states, aren't recommending cannabis for mental health issues, nor is Colorado doing anything to help the mental health state of our youth in this whole state. So the pandemic actually brought out a bunch of parents who now know their kids smoke pot and made a huge deal about it. And we saw what happened, and they needed a target, and that target has always been cannabis because it's an easy target.
And Julie, what's your take on the general struggle in Colorado right now?
Oh, well, to this bill, there's money behind it. The Blue Rising is one of the organizations that are, pushing this through. And they had the money to hire the lobbyists and the people to go in there and to push. What we did is, not just Colorado Normal, but all of the different patient groups and organizations that are fighting for the cannabis plant. We did everything we could. We met on Zoom. We went up there, but not having the manpower that we should have. And, this was like a dog with a bone trying to take it away from them. It just, the way that they handled it was sneaky. They cannot say that we weren't engaged. They cannot say that. Because a lot of them were talking to us, to our faces, but yet knowing the underhanded tactics they were going to be using. And, even as horrific as this bill is, it's not going to achieve what they say it's supposed to do.
Shocking.
Yeah. Yeah, it is not going to do that. Now, we are so concerned about our youth. We don't want our youth to be getting a hold of what I call medical grade cannabis. Now, I'm fighting cancer. I have epilepsy. I just had surgery on my spine. I'm taking tons of it, and I'm very thankful for it. But if this law passes, I'm not going to have the access that I need. And, and that's a lot of patients, and they're going to have to turn back to the black market. And that's already happening. But if you're dealing with an epilepsy patient that has to have the same consistency, the same amount, and very carefully distributed, if we don't have what a dispensary can offer, then we're going to get sick, and not just have epilepsy, but we're going to have, a lot of times there's going to be a lot of stomach issues. There's going to be headaches, if we don't have what's been established for us. Now, the black market is also going to bring back all the explosions. One of our board members is an extraction expert, and he talks about making the RSO and the other products in a bomb-proof shelter, and the extensive education he had to go through just to be able to do this in a safe manner. The guy that has a sick family member and wants to try it for himself is going to go to YouTube and not know what he's doing, follow some YouTube video and blow up his house. And I know about that firsthand. I have an ex-roommate from up here that did the same thing. And it's not who you think it is. These were two educated women, middle class, kind of, and they decided they wanted to give it a hand and try to make it themselves, and blew up their condominium and the neighbors. And so that's coming back. So, on top of it, not just being unconstitutional at the start, and the way that they handled it was underhanded and didn't give us a voice at the table. That's not how this is supposed to work. They didn't even consult with any marijuana doctors in writing this. And, so there's a lot of terminology in there that's going to be very, very dangerous for doctors, because there's no such thing as a prescription. They can recommend, but so it's just a big mess. And we're talking about less than 5% of the medical marijuana patients. And with that, I think the most important thing that needs to be understood is they had a lot of bad and misinformation. They're making it sound like once you get your medical card, you can just go into any dispensary you want and get anything you want. Well, that's not true.
Ashley, you look like you had something you want to say about the doctor-patient relationship there.
Right.
So, yeah, it's just a lot of misinformation actually in this bill. This bill says it's going to, let's see, what are the possibilities of the governor vetoing this legislation? Can I answer that question?
Please.
Okay, so we've done everything that we can to try to get Governor Polis to veto. We have held a press conference at the Capitol. We pulled a permit on the last day of session, which was June 8th, and we had about 20 medical patients there, and they spoke about why they use it, why they need it, the amounts, how this bill isn't what it's represented. The language in it, when you dig down into it, isn't what is represented. So with the governor and in knowing what he has done for the medical marijuana community and extending the executive orders allowing medical marijuana doctors to recommend to their patients over telehealth, we were unable to get that codified this year. It failed in committee, but the alcohol one passed for another 4 years. So we're hoping Governor Polis is going to be on the medical marijuana patient side. But not only that, but he had started the Cannabis Institute in Pueblo, in Colorado. And this bill has a research portion of it that only allows one school, which is the Colorado Public of Health, to receive $1 million for 3 years to study studies that have already been published. Now, we already can look through those already published studies and see that the gaps that are there have been regulatory framework on the federal government's part. So until the federal government changes their regulatory system, not even can NIDA or JAMA or any of the other scientific community actually do what they're supposed to do. And if we are going to already research studies that's been published, those are from NIDA or from Anschutz, and we know that those studies were funded on the basis of showing negative outcomes in cannabis. NIDA is the National Institute for the Drug Abuse, so we know they're going to try to show some negative outcomes. So fighting this and already researching research studies that are biased is completely it's completely already handing over a contract to a school without giving other places here in Colorado that have the ability and the opportunity to actually study this. So the research bill part is another misunderstanding. And then the youth diversion was what the main portion of this bill was for. youth diversion was 18 to 20-year-olds, to where they're getting their medical marijuana card and going in and getting a whole bunch of concentrate and then selling it to the underage kids, and then these kids are going home and smoking them. They're 16, 17 years old, and it's causing them to act crazy, and as far as their parents are concerned, and they're having to go into rehab and such. And we're sympathetic to that fact. However, whenever we pull up the CDPHE's information and the data thereof with the 18 to 20-year-olds, we have, like Julie said, it's less than 5%. It's 4.8, which is 3,000 patients. And we already in Amendment 20 have penalties for those people who use the red card, not like they're supposed to. If they misuse the red card, they get their red card taken away for a year, and there are penalties there. Therefore, why do we have this piece of legislation that's tracking 21 plus, and it's not tracking the recreational side at all? One of my diversion suggestions would be to put a QR code on the bottom of each concentrate and link that QR code back to the store. So once these are found either in the school or at the parent's house, then they could snap it, see where it came from, and where the diversion was coming from. Instead, they want to track patients all the way from if you're a pediatric patient, but from 17 to however old you are. And now you're tracked in real time. So if you go into a store, they're going to know exactly what time you bought it, where you were at, and now we have an initiative on our ballot coming in 2022 that is going to raise taxes for the recreational cannabis 5%. And a lot of our medical patients are recreational users because they can't carry a gun. If you're a medical patient, there's so many restrictions if you're a medical patient here in Colorado that recreational users are a lot of medical users, and now they're 5% going to be charged extra for their medicine. So it's all messed up.
Yeah, I would just point out that I don't think any kind of mandated or forced tracking is the answer, but the fact that I'm with you on the core point that the fact that the idea of tracking could be used in a way to address the problem they're using as the excuse, but that's not how it's being used is just one more example of the hypocrisy that indicates ulterior motives and all of this. Also in studio co-hosting today is cannabis activist G.I. Mary Jane. Joey, do you have any questions for our guest? She's making all sorts of faces hearing you guys talk, like, disgust, exasperation. There's a lot of just like emotional shit in the cannabis community as a whole over this right now, and a lot of it is just you're like almost underpinned by a disbelief that the government, the establishment, all of the powers that be are still holding on to what they can of the cannabis prohibition racket and the extortion racket around it being a controlled substance to whatever degree they can tax the hell out of it. It's like, really, didn't we win this war? Isn't this the beginning of the middle of the end of the war on drugs? And it's like, no,
I keep telling you,
we still, we won the debate, and now we have to push policy out of the way. That's still like it's a fucking grind of seeking justice against a machine.
It's the same
sad.
thing.
I mean, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for people like this and normal who are doing this. But man, if the rest of the country that is behind you was paying attention, your job would be a lot easier, wouldn't it?
You're telling me. And if the people that were behind this bill were actually up front and forward and actually brought everybody who was involved and who this bill actually affected to the table, we could have wrote a damn good piece of legislation for education, for parental support, because that's what it seemed like this this whole charade was. It was a bunch of parents that had kids who were underage using high potency THC. This isn't for those people. So
Right. And they were also testifying that these kids were using alcohol and prescription drugs with the cannabis, and that's a huge no-no.
Hey,
I'm
as
sure
long as we
that
don't make
affected them.
parents take responsibility for being shitty parents, then politicians will support the policy, right?
At the end of the
You
day,
are right on the money right there. And that's one of the things that, we have really tried to get going. We have fabulous medical professionals in the cannabis industry, and some that have already written curriculum and have taught it in other states. I tell people when they go, "Oh, we're going to move to Colorado," and I said, "No, you're not. Don't know. Why don't you look at Oklahoma? Why don't because they're legalizing, but they're doing it with better bills. We were wanting to work on taking out cannabis testing for employment this year and adding to it, but this was brought on so underhandedly that we had to drop what we were working on just to play defense on this bill. And you are absolutely right. The patients are in absolute terror is the best way to put it. One of our favorite moms is Michelle Walker, and she, at the press conference, she said, "I will be trading Jailhouse Orange for Funeral Black to save my son's life." And she is absolutely correct. Her son has autism, but he also has epilepsy. And that's exactly what's happening. And they're going, where are we going? How can we get out of Colorado? Who's going to help us do this? And so what they're just causing another problem.
Joy, do you have any other questions for our guests? I saw you popped some up in the comments there.
As far as you were mentioning with the other states, I feel like if the other states pay attention, because Colorado was the first to legalize, and I think that's why they're playing here in Colorado first. The first bill to drop, I just wanted to the first bill to drop was a 15% cap potency on both flower and concentrates, and we were able to break that out and get it away. But also they wanted to package a gram of concentrate into tenths. So they were going to add more packaging into the already added packaging that we have.
Oh my gosh.
So if we did get that put out of the bill too. So however, industry was a big part of helping get what they didn't like out of the bill that would affect them on their end, and kind of forgot about us medical patients, which that's another topic to get into.
So if I may get to this comment on screen here, there are a lot of people in our audience who would describe themselves as localists one way or another, that we want government power as local as possible down to the community. And cannabis has been the story of cannabis legalization so far has been a great example excuse me, of local governments, state governments in particular, being able to say, screw you to the central government, we don't need you. So yeah, as Mike Freeman says, what about going to the counties and getting sanctuary status? I would just rephrase it more broadly. What do we have to look forward to with this bill or with other legislation that counties are going to say, screw you to corrupt state laws?
Well, the good thing is that Colorado does run off of a local municipality status. But this piece of legislation in particular doesn't just allow local municipalities to have much of a say due to the medical marijuana dispensaries being so spread out throughout the state of Colorado. Some patients have to drive 4 to 5 hours to their nearest medical marijuana because their local municipality city council hasn't allowed for dispensaries to be in their town yet. So this is where a lot of people are going, and I always push, this is where it starts, advocacy on a local level, because once you can start with your city council members and changing the way things are there, if you can get your town right, the state laws can be a go around. There can be, you can go around there. Can they grow their own? So in Colorado, yes, you can grow your own. Constitutionally, you have the right to grow 6. If you have a card and are a medical marijuana patient, you have the right. However, we have seen confusion, and that's what lies within the local and the state differences, is when a state passes a law like they did in 1220, limiting the caregivers to a 28 plant count. Now we've got local municipalities that have exempted both caregivers and medical patients, so they're able to grow up to their 38 plant count, 44, 55, however many they need. But the law enforcement are uneducated in the new laws of the local municipality, that they follow the state laws, and this causes many confusions. It's caused patients to get raided by many law enforcements here in Colorado, and a lot of that happens on the southern end in Colorado.
All right, Joey, any other questions that we didn't get to? Any other comments?
No, that's it. I'd have to imagine that the audience is kind of in shock. Colorado, it's legal there. Jillian Ripple says that she's leaving Cali for Oklahoma. I guess around the weed laws, she was saying a lot of people are leaving Colorado, and she go to Oklahoma.
But Oklahoma's prohibition territory.
No, they just opened up. They just legalized. They have a fresh market.
Really?
It's a little bit of green rush territory over there right now, I would have to assume. But no, it's a shame. Thanks, Ashley, for what you do. I'm a Colorado patient myself, and living here in Arizona, when I found out that the regulations were so more strict if I got my medical card than if I were a medical patient. I forget what it was. I was only allowed to get 4 ounces a month, but as a recreational patient or a recreational buyer, I could get 1 ounce a day, like unlimited. I could come to the dispensary every day if I wanted to and get 1 ounce. But as a medical patient, they cut me off at 4 ounces, which, once I realized, I'm like, okay, we're good. It's okay. But for me, as a mom in a custody battle, I need that medical card because I've got a custody court trying to tell me that my use is, habitual and dangerous. And I need this card to back that up. So it's frustrating. There's a lot of people in that situation, and it's crazy. How about we just let people grow and smoke weed like they want? And
there's no money to be made in that. That's a crazy idea.
Pretty simple to me.
All right, Julie, Ashley, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Any final thoughts?
I guess my final thoughts would be for congratulations to the other states, like Oklahoma, because you can have a gun and a cannabis license there, and also South Dakota, they just legalized and they opened up, and kudos to them, they allow their medical patients to get 3 ounces and have 3 ounces on them. This year we passed a bill for 2 ounces, so Colorado is not in the lead anymore, and it's not because of us. It's our policymakers and not giving us a say. And we need to be sure that just because your state's legalized, you cannot stop the advocacy work. You cannot stop on a local level. You cannot quit volunteering and keeping up what you did in the past, because if you don't, somebody else is going to come behind you and just take the rug out from under whatever you just did. So
awesome. And we have Oppose HB 211317, hosted by ColoradoNormal.org. Thank you so much, Jim, for getting that on screen. Anything you want to say about that website or what people can do to help here?
Yes, you can go to that website and you can write an action alert to HB 1317, and you can also sign up to volunteer, become a sponsor, and know that we have our chapter meetings every second Tuesday of the month, and we send out a newsletter every last Monday. And we could use anybody and everybody really. We're
Awesome.
a voice for the cannabis consumption. So all around.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ashley.
Yes, thank you.
All right, and we're just in time to get to our next guest, ladies and gentlemen. Martin Cowen is a candidate for U.S. House of Representatives to represent Georgia's 13th district, running as a libertarian, someone I've had the honor of meeting in person several times and to interview once even for Man on the Street format, Adam versus the Man. Always someone who's been just, there's something about your intellectual certainty, sir, that is a service to our cause. I appreciate your attitude. I appreciate your messaging. I appreciate your commitment to the party. Anything we should know about your background before you get into telling us about this run you're embroiled in?
Well, I'm a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for 46 years. I have been a member of the Libertarian Party. My first involvement was in 1972 when I attended the state of Georgia, the first convention of the Libertarian Party of Georgia in Georgia. So I've been involved in the Libertarian Party for 50 years. I've been studying freedom for 50 years. And so while I tend to be modest, but I do think I know something about the subject of freedom with that base of study. I'm a lifetime member of the National Libertarian Party, and I've been very interested in our, turmoil this week on the national level.
Well, I meant campaign you're embroiled in as a libertarian running for Congress. Maybe embroiled is too libertarian a way of looking at it. Did you have anything you want to say about national issues facing our party right now?
Well, I'm a big fan of Carol Ann Harlow. She's a firebrand. She's great. She's vivid. We need her. We need somebody with so much energy in the party. And I totally support her. And I look forward to re-electing her secretary in Reno next year. And I hope they don't remove her, which is, that motion is pending. But those people who are against Carol Ann are going to be history in Reno. I'm almost 100% sure they'll be unelected.
Yes, no, I'm with you there, and you put it very well. Karen Harlow is not only all those things you say in a staple of the party, but I have heard the case against her, and I don't buy it. It's not groundless, but I don't buy it. And hopefully we'll have Richard Longstreth or Laura Ebke, two LNC members, who have voted in favor of the removal on this show and give them a chance to justify their votes and make that case. But Martin, thank you for joining us and coming to her defense. So to your run in Georgia, this isn't your first run, correct?
That's right. This is my third time. I ran in 2018, 2020, and now I'm running in 2022. Your viewers may be interested to note that I'm one of the plaintiffs in a lawsuit which is called Cowen against the Georgia Secretary of State, Cowen and others against the Georgia Secretary of State, including the Libertarian Party of Georgia. And we filed this ballot access lawsuit. Under Georgia law, I'm required to get 22,000 signatures to get on the ballot. And I don't need to tell you that in 2018 and 20, I didn't get those signatures, although I did end up on the ballot. I got votes, legal votes, because I signed up as a write-in, and I actually got some votes. But, we lost that case in the district court. It went to the Court of Appeals, and we won. And now it went back to the district court, and we won. And so I'm really excited. The judge hasn't decided what the remedy is going to be. The remedy that we have asked for is to completely eliminate the signature requirement, which would mean that I would actually appear on the ballot in 2022 if I do the other things which are required, such as pay the money, which is not small change. It's like $5,200, $5,200, which I've done twice before. So I tell you, I'll do it again. So we won the lawsuit, and we're waiting for the result. And if it's no signatures, I'll be on the ballot. If it's 100 signatures, I'll be on the ballot. If it's anything less than 800 signatures, I'll probably be on the ballot. But I can promise you, and anybody in politics knows, collecting those signatures is a miserable process.
Unless you learn to enjoy it, there's a slog, but you can enjoy talking to people and enjoy the rejection of being that guy with the clipboard because government made you stand there that everybody is annoyed with. But there's something about the persistence of you doing this that I think is really admirable, because there are a lot of libertarians who have this experience and don't see the longer game, that don't see the value in running again and reaching your district again. It's almost a lawyerly methodology and patience with which you are approaching this now, seeing it as a longer term struggle. Let's see, what is it? We'll come back to that question. But Martin, is there something that you would say you have figured out that is unique as a libertarian candidate and persisting in a particular congressional race and persisting against ballot access issues that might be some wisdom of insight worth sharing with other candidates?
Well, before I started my process, I wrote a book called Fabian Libertarianism, 100 Years to Freedom. And one of the big ideas in the book is that this process is going to take time. And it's not going to be 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, 2 years, or 10 years. We have to be in it for the long haul. And I'm talking decades. And so, my book, Fabian Libertarianism, 100 Years to Freedom, focuses on that issue, that we've got to communicate to our colleagues in the Libertarian Party that this isn't going to happen overnight. Just as an example, I had a colleague who ran with me he was running for another office, but we were collecting signatures together. And I don't want to speak for him, but I think he got burned out because he had the same problem I did, where it's going door to door, it's painful. We're out for 3 hours and we get 15 signatures each, and he thought it was going to be so much more happen more quickly. And I try to say no, it's not going to happen quickly, and so he's not really involved anymore. I think we have to learn to pace ourselves, or be prepared, like I am, to keep keep going and going and going. But we need to know it's going to take decades, honestly, decades.
Yeah.
That's why the subtitle of my book is 100 Years to Freedom.
No, that's great wisdom. And I am 100% with you on the larger patience for the cause and what it takes for humanity to make the shift that we envision of really embracing a solid system of ethics that might lead them to libertarianism. But And what backs me up in that and giving me that patience is knowing that I can always reach one person, and that will always make it worthwhile. And as an LP candidate, as an activist, as a podcaster, I know that there's a certain satisfaction that I'm always pulling in the right direction. You can always bring one more person over. I might not share your patience for the procedure, sir, but that being said, I still admire it. So what is your offer now to the people of Georgia's 13th congressional district, and has it changed over 3 cycles?
No, it hasn't changed. And one of the big issues for me is, the federal government has only 2 jobs. One is corporate welfare, and the other is warfare. And everything the federal government does can be reduced to those 2 things. And if you want to be completely honest, warfare can be reduced to corporate welfare, right? Because the only reason for the 170 countries we're occupying, have soldiers in right now, the only reason for that is, to support the military-industrial complex. So, our federal government is a miserable institution, and the only thing that I would even leave behind in a libertarian utopia would be a national defense. But the problem is that it's a communication problem, and you're doing a yeoman's job in the communications problem.
Hold on, Martin. As much as I can respect your differentiation on wanting to collectivize defense, wouldn't you agree that in a libertarian utopia, there would be no need for such a libertarian defense because we would live in such an enlightened, peaceful world? Is that not part of your vision as well?
Perhaps. But I always say, when people raise the question of, are we going to have an anarchy? I say, well, I'll argue with that about you in 100 years. When we get close to that, I will argue about that. Now it's not. It's not. It's.
Well, let's start with localization. We can get rid of the whole. We can make your national defense exist at the county level for all I care. All right, healthy disrespect for authority had also this question back on screen. What would you say is the biggest challenge in Georgia to the libertarian government, or to libertarian government? The worst policies that to overturn. So, what would be your priorities in Georgia to lessen the viciousness or the negative impact of the state?
Well, it's not a federal question. He's asking me, or she's asking me, a non-federal question. Shane Hazel, who's running for governor here in Georgia, is going to do the state stuff. I'm doing the national stuff, and I mentioned that my highest priority is reducing the war footing of the United States. In Georgia, I'm actually pretty proud of Georgia. I mean, we're not the #1 state in terms of dealing with COVID, not inflicting freedom costs in Georgia because of COVID. We were maybe the 3rd state. I mean, Florida is clearly the best in terms of not stepping on people's toes. South Dakota might be a really good one, but Georgia's done a really good job in not being too oppressive. So I'm really proud of what Georgia has done when looked at from the standpoint of the entire 50 states. I don't have a particular plan for the state or dealing with state issues.
Okay, well, let me rephrase it then to serve your campaign here, your platform as a representative of Georgia. What would be your priority for changing federal legislation?
Well, on my website, cowenforcongress.com, I have 9 things that I list, and I'm not going to list them here because we don't have enough time. But let me list the one that I always find very interesting, and that is the student loan. That's a real popular subject now. Let's talk about what are we going to do? Cancel the student loans, okay? I'm not in favor of canceling the student loans. I have a subtler solution. I think the entire program was a fraud. It's a total fraud on the children to say, borrow $100,000 and you can pay it back in taxes and loan payments over the years. Entire fraud. But my solution is not to just abolish the debt. My solution is to do away with the bankruptcy protection for those loans. A student who has a $100,000 debt and working at Starbucks and can't possibly pay the debt can't file for bankruptcy. I mean, it can, but the loans are protected highly. So what I would do is make a student loan just bankrupt, just like a medical debt or a credit card debt or whatever debt in federal bankruptcy could be discharged. Make it that way, and then you could have an individualized basis to decide should this person be discharged from bankruptcy in his loan. So I think that's a nuanced solution to the problem. The other big problem, and this does apply to the states as well, that I'm very, very concerned about is medical situation. I'd like to see a free market in the medical system. And of course, we have nothing even close to a free market in medicine. For example, just as you talked about COVID earlier today, we wouldn't have had a pandemic if we had free market medical. People worried about the hospitals being stoked up with patients. The thing the free market loves is a spike in demand, and then entrepreneurs come to the spike in demand in this case for medical services and create services. We would have had thousands of hospital beds pop up overnight if it were a legal thing to do. In Georgia, we have something called certificate of need laws. And so you can't even build a medical facility without permission of the state. I mean, it's entirely protective. I mean, to think that people that think we have a free medical system or free enterprise in the medical system, they don't know a thing about it. We have nothing close to a free market medical system. It's totally government run. It's a nightmare.
All right. The website again, cowenforcongress.com. Let's get that on screen, can we? Martin, thank you so much for joining us. Any final thoughts, sir?
I greatly appreciate you. I'd love for you to follow me on Twitter. I do spend a lot of time there. That's at ML Cowen, at ML Cowen, Cowen. And if you care to make a donation, you can go to my Cowen for Congress website and do so there. Thank you, Adam. It's great seeing you again, buddy.
Always. Thank you, Martin. All right, let's see how many we can get through in our grab bag in the last few minutes of the show here. A lot of stuff to get to, and I hate to say this again, but we're gonna have to postpone Mental Health Monday, and or talk about Biden launching. We're just gonna be Mental Health Tuesday. Biden launching domestic terrorism strategy targeting anti-government ideology, white supremacy, and more. We're going to get into that, and the FBI orchestrating the insurrection on January 6th. Follow-up stories to that. Let's see. I've got Atlantic City to use sirens to mark 10 p.m. juvenile curfew.
Wow.
Yeah, Fox 5 New York. Interesting note of the state of affairs, the police state of affairs we may find ourselves in right now. Let's see. I got all sorts of mental health and fun stories that we're not going to get to today. Skipping ahead, ship shake from the sun. U.S. Navy detonates huge 40,000-pound bomb next to its own aircraft carrier, triggering earthquake 100 miles away in Florida.
Great.
Just because we can.
Good job, guys. Good job.
Yeah. Look at our peanut. I mean, look at our bombs. The Western Journal, amazing therapy dog saves life of woman who was on the verge of jumping off bridge to her death. Like, how did they get this story? Digby is a Labradoodle from the Exeter area of England, serves firefighters dealing with trauma, able to extend his services to the general public when on Tuesday night, a woman found herself standing in a precarious position on a bridge over a highway, and first responders sent in the dog. Yeah, kind of this goofy looking, furry, curly haired dog. Yeah, pretty hard to kill yourself looking at that face. Yep, dogs. Is there anything they can't do?
Okay.
Institute for Justice. More U.S. private vault renters step forward to fight FBI's efforts to steal over $85 million using civil forfeiture. These owners have not been charged with any crime, but the government is trying to permanently take their most prized possessions without telling them why. Yeah. One more reason not to keep shit in banks. And now one more reason not to call the cops. And you can watch this. I would not watch it, but the freethoughtproject.com, good to them for bringing us this story. Cop knocks on man's door, kills his dog, then kills the man for being angry. Yep.
Your tax dollars at work.
Yep. Another crazy story from the Washington Post at sfgate.com. Ex-lawmaker insisted her sister-in-law was murdered in burned trailer. Now she's been killed at the same site. I don't know if this is the story we're going to see as like the next Tiger King miniseries or something, but this is crazy. House Education Committee member Ashley Henley, Republican from South Haven, former teacher in Mississippi, said her sister-in-law was murdered and then burned, and she was tied up this property as a shrine, and then she was shot in the back of the head.
Wow.
I hope we'll come back to this one.
Yeah.
Speaking of coming back to stories, St. Louis Dispatch, stltoday.com. St. Louis gun-waving couple plead guilty to misdemeanor charges. This is Patrick and Mark McCloskey. You remember Ken and Karen with the guns and the very poor trigger control and barrel discipline. What is it? Plead guilty to misdemeanors and give up their weapons.
Yeah, man.
So 4th degree assault. Now, like, there's so much, like, there should be punishment for someone who improperly defends their property with a firearm by creating even just flat muzzle flashing, threatening liability for people. But it should be a slap on the wrist. It should be a sorry to my victims. Here's a few $100s. Sorry I caused you emotional turmoil and threatened you inappropriately. Done. You know, in some social standard of that. Instead, $750 fine, 4th degree assault class, and it's not an assault.
They did assault.
It's not assault. Like, you want to, like, this is where government just loses credibility with the whole legal system. Like, you're using words like no, class C misdemeanor. Patricia McCloskey must pay $2,000 fine, second-degree harassment. Could have faced 15 days in jail. Patricia could have faced a year. Of course,
yes,
they're not going to get jail time, but like the government comes and threatens them with jail time and legal bullet and giving up their weapons. Like if like and I have no problem with society telling them one way or another through voluntary means, hey, if you're going to own guns, you got to do it properly. If you're going to own guns, you got to go to a class. Can't do this again. You got to know where the lines are. Vietnam, this is from Reuters. Vietnam introduces nationwide code of conduct for social media. Social media users are encouraged to promote the beauty of Vietnam scenery, because we needed a law to tell people that. People and culture, and spread good stories about good people. Oh, but also they should not say things bad about their government. We're just going to sneak that in, you know. Yeah, sure. Bombshell report from Vice. Bombshell report finds phone network encryption was deliberately weakened. A new paper shows that two old encryption algorithms still used in mobile networks can be exploited to spy on phones' internet traffic. Yeah, one more reason to believe that none of your digital communications are secure. From New Zealand Herald, Tokyo Olympics, Kiwi weightlifter Laurel Hubbard to be first transgender athlete to compete at the games. And a lot of muscle tone you got there. A lot of masculine facial features you got there. But yes, nonetheless, Kiwi weightlifter Laurel Hubbard will make history at the Tokyo Olympics by becoming the first transgender athlete to compete at the games. Okay, that's happening, just so you know. Wall Street Journal, American Airlines cuts some flights to avoid potential strains. A lot of interesting stuff intersecting with that story. UN warns of cascade of human rights setbacks in our lifetimes. Nice to see that finally acknowledged. And finally, Joe Exotic, TMZ.com. Joe Exotic launching his own cannabis line.
Fuck out of here.
Straight from the joint. Yeah, all right. Well, I'll smoke to that. Wait, didn't they say what was the strain? The Tiger King. It's Joe Exotic Cannabis. Yeah, why not brand that while you're in jail? I thought he'd have his own branded
for this, and I want to, like, but I can't. Like, good for you.
Well, I think he's missing the opportunity to have his own brand of meth. Wasn't that way more relevant to the Tiger King story?
Totally.
Dudes with missing teeth. Why is he selling weed? Money. All right, Jim, give us the producer notes.
What's going on? A little bit slow there. Real quick, 60 seconds. T.me/Adam vs. the Man. That's the public Telegram channel where you can find everything. Patreon.com/Adam vs. the Man is where you can sign up to support the show. Instagram.com is at the Garden. Excuse me. At the Garden of Freedom is the handle for the Instagram page. The Crypto6.com is the best place to go to support those guys. Rated in the Bitcoin Church up in Keene, New Hampshire, and GoGreenEnergyOnline.com is where we send everybody that's interested in learning more about solar power, micro wind power, and zero energy homes. Do-it-yourselfers, go to GoGreenEnergyOnline.com. Have a beautiful day, everybody.
All right. Thank you very much, Jim. All right, I got to refresh so I can see my clock. For some reason, StreamYard is freezing my screen a lot today. So to goodnewsnetwork.org for this day in history. It was on this day in 1749, Halifax, Nova Scotia was founded. That's good news, I suppose. Although, bad news from 1788. Can you imagine what bad news we had in 1788, considering we were the United States, at least in the midst of a constitutional coup? For some reason, goodnewsnetwork.org seems confused about this one. On this day in 1788, the first constitution of its kind in human history was established as the supreme law of the United States, when New Hampshire became the 9th state to ratify it after it was drafted 1 year earlier in Philadelphia. Actually, this is a major step back for humanity. Major first constitution of its kind that laid out the illegitimate power to force a central bank on a country, a military monopoly. All right, I need some good news. On this day in 2004, Spaceship One became the first privately funded spacecraft to achieve spaceflight. Oh, and on this day in 2015, the first International Yoga Day was celebrated, yet led by the yoga-loving Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi. Absolutely good news. And with that, well, peace and love, y'all. Choose happiness and be excellent to each other.